without accountability.
But that's not, but see, the problem...
It's the same thing. We have bad government because we have
wait a minute.
people elected.
The problem I have with that, is that one, we don't know this young lady.
I don't know
We
her.
don't
She
know
don't
this
know
young
me
lady
either.
to dictate, to know why, in fact, she wins. Why did she apply for?
This is not the point that I'm making.
Okay, but let me finish. Let me just say this. So,
I got one more
the
point.
issue, I'm sure you do. The issue is that these programs are supposed to be short-term. Short-term means in order to assist. So in other words, if I'm going through a hard time, I fall on a hard time, and I have to go to a source of government. I have to go to, wait a minute, I have to go to a source of government in order to help me so that I can reposition myself. You mean to tell me that's wrong on my part?
But nobody's saying that.
No, let's
Tommy said that.
No, let's look at the road in 1996.
Tommy said that.
In 1996, when Republicans wrote and passed the welfare laws, 3 million people got off welfare. 3 million people got off welfare within the first year. Why is that?
That doesn't mean that they weren't poor.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they still weren't poor.
Let me make a
That
point.
still doesn't mean that their children
My
didn't have. You don't know if their children had anything to eat.
No.
You don't know
My second
if
point is this.
if they had any, heat or hot water or any or even any shelter.
My second point is this. My second point is this. Why is it that the number one population in America that has a problem with obesity is the poor population? Why is that?
Because fruits and vegetables cost twice as much as a bag of chips.
In the impoverished community.
All right, but hold on. And I was waiting, and I wanted to make a comparison as well to something when Lovely was talking about the young lady who had to quit her job because she got sick, ovarian cancer, right? And the flip side is, because I agree, the system is broken. It is broken 100% because of that reason, because of the reason that we spoke about before, how it discourages families in it, as well because how it takes, again, it takes my money from me, it leaves me not the ability to help that young lady who has ovarian cancer, because back in the day, that's how it used to be, where I had the ability to do that. We as a community could come around and help. But on the flip side of that, I'm going to use my mom, who was on her deathbed. She built a business. She worked for herself, makes a decent amount of money, maybe not like $100,000 or anything, but enough to care for herself, had a little farm, they got some goats and stuff, and some horses, and started selling horse tack. She used to be a drug dealer. She got out of it and found a way to do drug dealing the legal way. It was horse tack. Okay, so she started selling horse paraphernalia. So in doing that, she's built up this nice little thing. You know what I mean? Where she couldn't really help us out a lot, but she probably made a good $60,000, $70,000 a year. She got sick. She probably had the business now about 10 years. She's literally a walking miracle. She was septic for 7 days. Impossible to happen. She doesn't believe in Jesus, but we're helping her out on that because she's a miracle. But in that, she could get no help from the government. She lost her house. She now lives with her parents at 67 years old. She moved in with her parents who are dying because she lost her house, because she could get no help, because she made too much money. A system that she paid into, and that she went, and it's all gone, everything. And I look at my mom, and I'm like, wow, that is amazing what she's been through. So on the flip side of that, it's not like the system is only broken on one side. It is broken from start to finish. And we do have to bridge the gap between what we're saying. We all want the same end goal, but we cannot continue to go on and tell people that it is okay for the government to take everything from us. Again, lower middle class, you're taking 40% of my money so that you can go and care for someone. When I have the ability to do it myself, I have a great church. I go to Joy Community. We help people. We built a whole, right there in the corner. We got the drug dealers out. They moved out of the police substation out of there. And this is from people that we really don't have a lot. But we were able to sow back into our community because people are willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to sacrifice my last dollar so that you can eat. Okay? But it's my choice. I get to decide versus saying, and again, you're always going to have, poverty's never going to go away. We need government. We need a certain amount of programs. It's always going to be there. That is who we are as a nation. It was set up that way. It was set up as a 80-20 system. Okay? 80% mercantilism, 20% socialism is what it is. That's what capitalism is. So I'm not saying that we don't get away from it, but I think we do. What does happen is we get away from it as soon as we start talking about, okay, well, you know what? Quit taking my money. That means that, oh, all of a sudden you want everybody to die, and you know you want dirty air and water and poor people to live in the street. When that's not the case. If that was the case, then you wouldn't see that, you know, so much giving.
Is anyone living large off of welfare?
Yes.
You know,
Not at all.
I just, you know,
You make 30. You know that you make.
I mean, if the person never had a job before, they don't know. They don't know the
you know,
difference.
you are right in that the welfare rolls did drop, and they dropped in Monroe County when these work requirements went into effect and the time limits went into effect.
$30,000.
And you know, that
Who
is
makes $30,000?
Well, between if you take, I mean, it depends on how much of welfare that you get on average, though. But if you count your rent, right? If you're counting rent, food stamps, and then if you get cash assistance and the health care that you take, and as well, like some people get, I used to get it.
I don't know
too,
anyone
myself.
living large off of $30,000 either.
Right.
If that's even true.
Okay, well, if you're
Most
lower middle
people
class, if it's working, then you're making $30,000
$30,000 is lower middle class.
That's right. I'm lower middle class.
Poor people
So somebody doing
who are
nothing gets the same amount of money.
on social services are not living large.
I'm gonna tell
They
you-
are getting by. They're going from day
That's
to day to day.
That's right.
The opportunity, the difference or the thought here is how do you help them move to a situation
That's right.
where it's about self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
Not that it's they don't need help or
That's
need
right.
services, and that's what government is there for. And
It-
so
it-
in
that's not what
actuality,
government is there
this
for.
young lady, you are helping her because she is now able to go to a system that can provide her with some medical insurance so that she can get healthy and then go back to work, which she wants
See,
to
this-
do.
this is the
And so
difference
you are
between us.
technically giving it to her.
That's right.
And when you talk about
Yeah,
the situation of people, of Democrats buying votes, I beg to differ. You look at the amount of money that was raised in the Republican. Look at the amount of money that was raised in the Republican presidential election.
75% of that came from the corporate world, not private
Exactly.
citizens.
So buying an election,
Democrat votes.
targeting
Their campaign
targeting
contribution came from
people,
most
and then you
private
come into office and you cut the very programs
We're not
that
even
these people
going,
need.
I don't even want to talk about Democrat vote. All I'm saying is this. Why is there a divide between the Republican-controlled economy and the Democratic-controlled economy? Why is that?
There we go. Because, okay, here's what we're going to do
Because
now.
we manage our money.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't worry.
Okay. In
I
as much
actually
as you
answered
can
that.
try to control yourself, let's try not to interrupt. But what I will do to offset if there's something you really, really need to say, I'm going to time it. So if someone's talking for 2 minutes, you're done. And then whoever wants to come back can come back. We'll do it that way, okay? Just because I want everyone, I want everyone to be able to speak, but I want us to, you know, I mean, I want everyone to be able to say what they need to.
I'm not gonna blow it.
So I had some other questions here, but I think we're kind of getting into the meat of this anyway. So we're going to go right into kind of. Clearly, we know there's a divide. Clearly, we know that there's.
There's not a divide, though.
Well, no, well, together.
There's a
But there is. I mean,
There's a philosophical divide. We're talking about a problem that we have solutions to, but we want to be. There's a total divide here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a CEO of a business. Okay, I know what it means to have money, pay employees. I know what it means to be a nonprofit and a corporate entity paying taxes. I understand that. Okay, so when you have employees coming to me and say, well, we need a raise, and on the other side, you have the government taxing the heck out of me, how am I going to give people a raise? And at the same time, when you raise the minimum wage, we have to increase the price of our product. This causes inflation all the way across the board. Now, if you're making $8.25, a year later, you either have no job or you lose $1 in the value of the money. That's just basic economics.
So here's what I want to do, because we're kind of going here anyway, and this is kind of, you know, going into this group discussion, but we're going to try to keep it as calm and no, it doesn't have to be calm, but it just has to be. I'm just going to go like
fine.
it off. Okay.
We're fine.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So kind of the application piece of this, because we did want to kind of lay the groundwork of the race and politics issue first, right? We wanted to get a feel for where we are, and I think, and when I say that clearly there's a divide, I think what this conversation has shown is that there is there's a pretty clear line between, you know, I'm not going to try to use a metaphor, but there's a clear line between, you know, that the end result is going to be that we're all going to say, Republican, Democrat, anywhere in between, we're all going to say that we want people to thrive, right? I mean, we want people to experience all the freedom and opportunity that America has to offer. However, we are going to come at it from very different places. And this seems to me, and this is a frustration that I have, that this should be the last place we're coming at from different. This is kind of the one thing that we really should get on board, you know, together with. And I think that, so the question that I want to open up the discussion to is, why is poverty a partisan and often racial issue? Why is it? And I'm going to give, if you start talking, if you're getting 2 minutes, and then...
Okay, well, let me put it this way. Let me start off with my 2 minutes first. Okay. Number one, the poverty that we're talking about is behavioral poverty. More money is spent in the Black American community than any other community in this nation. Okay, we got the most expensive shoes. We have the most liquor stores. We don't have a lot of banks, but we have the check cashing centers. We have a lot of things. We have a lot of resources in the Black community. The problem is resources, monetary resources, are being misdirected and mishandled. If Black people took all of their money and put it together in this country, we'll be the 14th richest country in the world. That's not that's behavioral poverty, not necessarily economic poverty. We have the same money everybody else has. We want to go out and buy a $100 pair of sneakers and go to the liquor store. Or, I mean, come on. Well, that's not racial profiling. That's somebody.
Hold on. He doesn't have 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry. This is not racial profiling. I'm just saying the problem that we bring on ourselves in these communities. You know, this is what it is. If I have a store and I want to make money, I'm going to put the liquor store or the sneaker store in the place where I'm going to make more money. Okay, that's what I'm going to do, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Go ahead.
And well, I mean, even though I agree with maybe a little sure about it tonight with me, but I know that, you know, again, same light, but just a little bit different. You know, I know that when I was on food stamps, I got daycare assistance, all these things, I was not going out and buying a lot of these things. Not that, and a lot of my friends don't either, okay? There's plenty of poor people that are working paycheck to paycheck, okay? That are out there that are trying and struggling day to day, okay? So, I think what happens is that when we start talking about those people that they are abusers, that everybody assumes we're talking about everybody that's poor, versus saying there's pockets of people. There are people, right, like myself. I wasn't, when I was on, you know, social services, I wasn't out there buying a 6-pack of beer every day. I wasn't doing that. I was working my butt off, you know, some 40, 50 hours a week trying to provide for my kids, okay? But it doesn't mean that I didn't notice other people that were not doing the same thing. And it did irritate me. But it also doesn't mean that, you know, again, when I did get married, one of the things I learned was, listen, when I got my tax return check at the end of the month, at the end of the year, right, because I have 3 kids, that was a nice size little $6,000 that I would get. If I would have been taking that $6,000 for the 10 years that I was getting it and doing something with it besides what I was doing with it, I would have $60,000 that I could have stashed away. Now, I needed the money. Don't get me wrong. I bought clothes for my kids because it was the only time of year that they got anything, okay? And they saved up everything, birthdays, everything. We would save it up, and we would say, okay, this is what you get. But I still could have taken some of that money and done something with it. So I think what happens is we are, because of the divide, want to say, okay, we're talking about these type of people that are the abusers, and that means we're talking about everybody. And that's not the case. We're talking about separate people that are doing separate things with their money, and some of it is wrong.
I just gotta say it. I love Reverend Davis, but that was profile. That was significant profile because not everybody does that.
Everybody, and that's what I said.
And not everybody, because my concern is other people become poor because other people exploit.
No.
Other people exploit. People exploit. People, the wealthy, let me just say this. You got certain people of power, people of wealth, people of prestige and influence know how themselves manipulate the system and to keep others at bay. And so other people become that way or stay in a certain rut. Some, because of other people exploiting other people. In addition, I would give to Reverend Davis that, yes, there is a behavioral issue. There is a behavioral issue to poverty. I mean, I'm a product of poverty. I come from that welfare.
So am I. Tobacco.
Me too.
Okay? Everything you can imagine that was social program, I was there, #1 on the line. I was even the one that said the cheese for during Reagan, what you call that thing? Reaganomics, whatever it was.
Reagan got $20 million.
Yeah, I was there. I was right there. Okay? And I accepted that. But it was a way, but it helped, wait a minute, it helped landed me and others from out of a state of poverty to where we are now, where I am now. And so when I'm saying this blanket statement bothers me.
He wasn't making one.
But you're making a blanket
But he
statement.
did. But he said everybody is behavioral. There's a behavioral problem.
Who's teaching these people to break these behavioral problems?
We teach them. You know why? Because I'm not preaching it. I'm empowering
When
them.
the education system is failing them at kindergarten,
Right,
how
from
are
that
you teaching
level.
them to break
Let me
behavioral
say
problems?
this. Can I say this, please? We own a high school, K through 12. Educate all of our students at
private?
70.
Is it
Yes, it's a
private?
private school. No
You gotta pay for it.
Okay.
No Star Christian Academy.
And
7,500
is there an
a
application
kid.
process?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Of course.
Okay.
How many children do you have?
We got about
in
500
special
now.
service?
In special services?
education.
Actually, we had about 90 kids that came to us for special services.
Special education.
Special education, we had, according to the city school district, we had about 60 kids that came to us that had so-called special needs.
What kind of special?
And are they coming
All
from
kinds
a
of-
family home? And is the what is the education?
I'm not the
level?
principal. I just got blanket numbers. I really don't have. Yeah, we don't have
Well,
all
I mean,
the specifics.
I think, well,
But we
I'm
doing
gonna
way
take
better
my
than the
2
city
minutes.
school district.
I'm going to take that.
And now I'm behind.
I'm going to take that.
Okay, well, listen.
Well, no, I'm not going to listen to you right now. I'm going to take that.
That's it. Say word.
Okay. I forgot.
Yeah, Rachel, we are 2 minutes.
We have
This gentleman.
okay.
It's an observation
Yeah.
that the board, by the panel, by their behavior, is demonstrating the need for government. Because when there is no government, people take too much time and they don't share as much as
Are you
they.
saying I'm bad government, Keith?
You're talking
I just want to say this really, really quickly. You know, when I get on a plane in Rochester, New York, and I fly across the country, I want to make sure that the place it lands has a runway that's long enough for my plane to land. That's regulated by government. When I get in my car, well, I want to make sure because if this plane is too large and it goes to a place where it's short, you know, where the runway is shorter, then, you know, God knows the plane may crash. But you need government to regulate and to set standards and to set boundaries. Now, is everything perfect? No. It's not perfect. But can we do better on some things? Absolutely. But to say that, you know, this whole system is the people's problem, you know, that receive these services, you know, it's not necessarily the case. There is a systematic barrier when you look at insurance redlining, when you look at the fact that it's easier for a white person to receive a loan to open up a business than it is for an African American or a Latino. When you look at the fact that, you know, many of even Arab or Chinese people, they don't go to traditional banks because they have their own money and their own wealth in their own community. They, you know, they have access to those dollars that other folks may not have access to. And so you have to look at the entire system. When you look at an educational system that thinks that it's okay and people are not outraged that 9% of African American males are graduating from high school, that it is more likely that a young child that enters into kindergarten in the city school district is more likely that that child will not graduate than graduate, then you have to take a step back. And you have to say, what type of systematic barriers are they?
You're talking about
role? How do people get to whose part should parents have a part, the system has a part, and then the community has a part. Everybody has a role to play here. Certain things are unacceptable in other communities that we accept in poorer communities. And to say that, that, okay, well, you're building liquor stores and chicken places and, places to buy hair and weave and all that other type of stuff. The fact of the matter is, yes, they're located in the black community, but who owns them? Right. Who owns them? Why are we owning them? Because we don't have access to capital. Right. We don't have access to. Okay, I'm just quiet. The system has set it up so that you don't have access to capital on a wide scale level. That's right. Wow. And so you have to look at all those things go into play.
Yeah. Why don't we have the capital?
Rachel.
Excuse me. I really believe that in this country, and it's still the land of opportunity, and anybody can make it if they want to. I still believe that. The study after study has shown that as the years go on, it's harder and harder to make it in this country if you're born poor. And I think that the one word that nobody has said, and Lovely clearly hinted at, was discrimination. It still exists. It was way more blatant back in the 50s and 60s, but it still exists today, particularly in the form of education and housing policy. The Democrat Chronicle did this great story about affordable housing and how there are communities in Rochester that don't want it, and they zone it out. I mean, there are suburbs here that will not let you build a house that's on less than 1 acre. That obviously means that people of certain means will never ever move to that town. And I think the overall point here is that discrimination still exists. But one thing that no one's mentioned that I'm shocked at when you talk about the educational system is we're a very segregated community, and we have the poor, and you talked about race and poverty, and I believe it's totally intertwined here. Poor black people in the city are segregated. They are isolated in certain communities. And I do believe that when you have poverty isolated like that, you do have pathologies. The cycle of poverty just continues and continues and continues, and it becomes harder to break when you have that kind of segregation, whether it's in our neighborhoods or in our schools. Certainly in the neighborhoods we see it with the violence, and the schools we see with the poor achievement rate. And I've long thought that if we more economically integrated our community, especially our schools, we might see some different results. And there are studies that show that economically integrating schools does help poorer children and does not hurt the wealthier children. And I don't understand why this community doesn't ever want to have that conversation.
Can I mention? I wanted to, and I just have made a couple of notes here, so I'm going to kind of go back down. And as when Lovely was talking about the airplane runway, and same with our interstate systems, it was not always the case where the government regulated all those things. Okay, we used to have, it was private enterprise that started every single one of those. But it wasn't until government saw need to control something in our lives where they came in and decided to take control of that and then regulate it under the guise of regulation. They say, if you're willing to give up a little liberty for safety, you have neither, right? John Adams, right? Is that or Thomas Jefferson? I can't remember. Thomas Jefferson said that. Sorry. And that's what we see with a lot of these things. Now again, it's not saying that we're saying government go away, but we do believe in limited government. The other thing is that when we talk about the schools and the education system, we are huge proponents of school choice. That is the #1 gateway out of poverty. Why is it that we don't have school choice? I personally believe, and we have advocated for years, that the money should follow the child. So in the Rochester City School District, if you want to take your child and move them to a suburban place or to just another school within the city, that you should have the right to do that. And that money that was normally allocated, because your tax money goes to that, should follow your child. So if it winds up being that you want to send them to North Star Christian Academy, who is $7,500, and right now it's about $22,000 or $23,000 that a kid gets, not only would that save us money as taxpayers for you to take your kid out of that 9%, and out of that 9%, over half of them aren't even functionally literate. I mean, I don't think it is wrong. I think it's criminal, and I think that is the biggest boondoggle. I am ashamed of not only the system, but I mean, I'm still heartbroken. I look at it, and I'm one of, again, I don't have kids. I homeschool my children for that very reason. I don't want them in there because I want my kids to have a chance. We don't have the money that I could send my kids somewhere, but I know that I can take control of my kids. It's a sacrifice that we make, okay? But when we look at those things, again, healthcare. Why can't it be that with healthcare, that young lady with the ovarian cancer, my solution would be, well, why do we have a healthcare system that's so expensive? Shouldn't the solution be that the healthcare system becomes what it used to be? We now have 14,000 pages of regulations that the government has given, and there's a direct correlation. Every time they give a regulation, the price of insurance has gone up. So why don't we go back to where things were working and build on those things and say, right, we're going to conserve what works and throw away all this other stuff. And then we have a starting point for all of us to say, yeah, we want you for health care. How do we do it? We want a better education system. When did we have the best education system in the world? Let's go back to that point, get rid of all the things that went afterwards, and start redoing it again, because we have to do something differently. We cannot keep things the way they are. My community is suffering. We're dying. We're killing ourselves. We're, again, food. Absolutely right. Food stamps, right? It costs more for me to get an apple than it does for me to get a bag of chips. Why is that? That's crazy, right? But then you look at all the farm subsidies that go into that. And, there's a lot of things. It's not as black as white as what we're looking at. And it is corporation. But again, who's run the inner city for 40 years?
The Democrats. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So here's another thing. Going in line with what Keith was saying, something else to observe from the panel itself is, and I've seen this, I'm kind of observing this here and there from, first of all, I think that, and I think this is a general sort of cultural understanding, is that we stereotype everybody and everything. I mean, this goes beyond race, this goes into political parties, this goes into if I wear socks and sandals, I mean, people stereotype, so I think what is important to remember is that, when we say things like, Republicans don't want any government, or when we say things like, the Democrats just want to spend us into, whatever. Okay. We have to be careful when we say these things, because I'm looking on this panel, and I'm not seeing one Democrat that falls into those categories, and I'm not seeing one Republican that falls into those categories. So I think we want to be careful when we have these, this is why we're having these conversations, so that we can start to kind of pull away from those blankets. I mean, my gosh, it's hard to even look at social media anymore because of the people, just blanket statements, based, and I mean, I have my own political convictions as well, and I'm not sorry for them, and I'm kind of proud of them. It took me a long time to get there, but I'm proud of them. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to respect those that that think differently, because the bottom line is every single one of you, we've all come to our own convictions based on our own personal experiences, whether it's life, education, background, family, anything. We've all come there, so we can't just shrug off what someone's saying, because of that. So I want us, that I'm just going to use that to segue into this, because I don't know that I know Tom alluded to this a little bit, but I want to, maybe everyone can have 2 more minutes on this, but why is, we touched a little bit on the poverty being a partisan and racial issue. Maybe just get into that a little bit more, because I think that's where what we're trying to get to here. Because the ultimate, the next question is going to be how much. Because another thing, blanket statement. I don't know that. Maybe some Republicans do, but I don't know that we really want to just completely get rid of the welfare system. Can't really do that. That would kind of be a dumb thing to do, But are there some significant changes that need to happen? Yeah. So how do we find the balance there in terms of government's role and individual responsibility? The church, and this is just, not everyone goes to church and everyone attends church or, supports the church, but the body of believers and followers of God are the largest population of individuals called to social services ever. We can't necessarily ignore that. Even if you don't believe in God, we can still say, man, this is a group of people that really, this is kind of what, we're supposed to be doing here. So I think, talking about that level of individual responsibility, private charity, where is the line? Because, and that's what I want the panel to find. I want us to find that meeting point. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. It might be you guys come a little this way and you guys come a little this way. But there's somewhere in the middle where we can say, hey, I believe in the teach a person to fish. We've got to equip people. We can't, as and even as Republicans, you can't keep talking about upward mobility unless there's places to move to. We can't keep talking about that. You know, there has to be, the opportunities have to be there. So where does that come from? So economic, you know, the economy and jobs and everything like that. So so everyone will go through the 2 minutes. I'm going to start with Marlowe, because Marlowe's been to the top. Okay, I'm sorry. So talk about a little bit about finding that sort of point between government responsibility and private charity.
You need to find leaders who have a heart and have a heart for people, not for greed, influence, power, and all that other kind of stuff. That's the problem. That's been the problem. And it's not the Republicans or Democrats. It is just the issue of greed, the issue of prestige, and all this other kind of stuff without having someone at the table. Who's at the table? You need people whose heart is right, because that's the problem. And I think that's the issue where we are failing to see in terms of our government leadership issue. A couple months later, my son and I, we went to Rite Aid on Monroe Avenue. And I was way behind him because he walked out the car first and fast and walked through the store. He had his hoodie. Naturally, he has his hoodie on, or a cap backwards, whatever. He's 17. Walks in the store, 6'5", black guy. The bodyguard or whatever, the security officer, stopped my son and said, "Take your hood off." And told him kind of rude, "Take your hood off." My son looked at him. Now I'm coming in the store and I said, "Excuse me, sir, why did you say take your hood off?" To him, "Well, that's store policy." Show me. Show me where it says it's a store policy over here. If not, I will sue you and the store, okay, for discrimination and infringing upon his civil liberty and mine, because you're assuming that he's a thief, okay, and walking into the store. I think there's a way in which we have to educate ourselves and our people, our family, our friends, in how, one, we should address each other. We should be going in our community, but at the same time, I think all of this means that the policies have to be created with people who have a right heart and understand what public policy is and how we draft public policy with those hearts. And I think that's our issue. So it's not always Republican and Democrat and seeing everything from those prisons.
I just have a question for him on that. I'm not going to speak. But
you want to speak?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to give. But but do you agree? I mean, that sounds good. But do you agree that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions?
I don't understand what you mean. The pathway to hell is.
Right. You know, like you can have all the good intentions in the world, but if you don't have good results, does it really matter? Right? We look at the system.
It's a good start.
So,
right. We look at the government system.
To clarify a little bit, yeah. So when you look at the reality, the more that if I'm understanding you correctly, Ayesha, that the more that is being spent, or the more the government involvement, we're still seeing numbers increase, which is not necessarily showing any sort of result. So if we say
I have great intentions, my heart is in the right place.
In an article once, and I said, good intentions don't parallel the policy. Talk about that. Say, what does that, if the policies aren't showing the results, even with the best intentions of caring and kind of offering more,
when do you cut it off?
Well, you got to try. But
when do you cut it off then?
Well, when you cut it off, after you see the results, we got to first examine the results. But that's not a Democratic or Republican prism. So the issue, you got to try from somewhere. Whether it's the Democrat in office or whether it's the Republican in office, it doesn't really matter. And so that to me is the issue of sitting at the table. The question is, who's at the table? Well, we need right people to be at the table.
Right.
And let the right people establish with other people the policy, and then we try from there.
Right, and you have to be realistic though, right?
Right.
We have to be realistic. We can have good intentions. I see them all the time, right, left, middle, wherever it is. Most people I don't think are evil or want, bad things. But I can look at something and say, that's a good intention. Your heart's in the right place. That is not your job. There are great teachers. There are poor teachers, right? There's some that you're like, I know you really want to be a good teacher, honey, but you just got to get out, right? Some people, I want to be a singer. Honey, your heart is in the right. I want to sing for Jesus, but he's the only one that wants to hear me sing. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so with your last minute, and the answer, so talk a little bit about the balance, finding the way between. Finding the way. See how he snuck it in there.
I'll come back with my minute.
Okay. So what? Again, so let's come back to maybe the Lovely here.
I would just say equal access to the opportunities for success.
Okay.
That's how you get this. Equal access to opportunities for success.
So
Whether you're black, white, Republican, Democrat, if you create a situation where you have equal access, truly equal access to the opportunities so that you can be successful, then I think that you need this balance in the middle. Because if you fail, then it's on you and not on a systematic barrier, because the opportunity and was available to you, just did not take advantage of it.
I think we're stuck on the how to get to the equal opportunity. I think that's where we're kind of stuck, and that's kind of where I go back to on this topic. Because, you know, we talked about the balance between, you know, how much government do we need, and do we need, I believe very strongly that you have to have a safety net or else children are going to go hungry. I mean, you have to have a safety net in our society. But, and I also believe that people don't enjoy being on a safety net. I don't believe that anyone wants that to happen. So, but I think we're all stuck on how do you help people to help themselves, and I think that's where we're stuck, and I don't necessarily have the answer to that. I mean, I threw out the whole question of I do think our community is incredibly divided, as we talked about in the beginning, and I do think that bridging that divide is key in some ways to answering the how question.
I think also part of bridging that divide is going to involve, you know, we talked about, you know, that we can't, you know, as much as we want to, we can't separate the policy from the poverty. We can't necessarily, you know, completely separate, you know, the individual who's living in poverty, the single mom with 4 children, from, you know, the, you know, rich old white guy making all the decisions. I mean, there's a, you know, there's.
But if I'm the rich old white guy providing jobs.
No. Hear me out, because I'm saying we can't. We have to bridge. The gap is not only between black and white, rich and poor. The gap that needs to be bridged is also between the individuals who are on the front lines of dealing with these issues and the ones making the decisions and how we handle these issues.
Well, your rich old white guy, by the way, has distributed income upwards over the. You were mad about money coming out of your paycheck to help other people. Well, the rich old white guy his pay has increased phenomenally over the last few decades, and meanwhile the pay has stagnated for the lower rungs, and that's a huge problem right now in our country.
Well, that's a huge problem because you say it's a huge problem.
The value of money has dropped.
Am my 2 minutes beginning right now?
Go ahead.
I mean, Reverend Marlowe spoke about greed. Okay, now my definition of greed, okay, is looking at what someone else has and wanting it for yourself without earning it. Okay, so if you're working for me and I have 25 employees and you're making more money than the average person in your neighborhood, in your community, and you want more, that's greed. And if you strike, that's greed. That's number 1. Number 2, a poor man never offered me a job before. Well, the one that did was a criminal, and he's in jail. Okay, this is the thing. And then we're talking about government. Government doesn't make any money. Government has to, anything the government has, it has to take from the private economy. Anytime you strip the private economy of capital, you rob the economy of jobs. And then we wonder why 825 people not getting a raise at 825. Because you can't give them a raise. Because one is going to payroll and one is going to government. This is just the way it is. I golf with him all the time. Okay? And you can golf with us in September too. I'm not talking to the CEO.
The CEO of Kodak, they're getting a $3 million bonus.
We're not talking about Kodak.
$3 million. I'm talking about Kodak.
And Kodak's bankrupt. What does that mean?
$3 million bonus while the people that work slave in their establishment. Benefits are being cut.
Tommy, I want you to
So what are you talking about? All those people that benefits that they cut. No, let's talk about that. Those people that worked in that establishment all those years and retired and believed that they were going to get certain services after they retired now are being told, listen, we're not abiding by that. We're gonna file bankruptcy. And then on top of that, our corporate establishment, our corporate board, we're going to give them bonuses for taking us bankrupt. So you tell me who made the money.
Right. We're not talking about
the Democrats.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay,
You're
so
talking
you're talking
about. That's not what I'm
let's
talking
look
about.
at it. Let's look at
That's
even
greed.
our insurance company. That's greed.
That's definition of
Even our
greed.
insurance company.
Legal.
How about the bonuses the IRS got?
$60 million surplus.
Okay, we have derailed. Hold on.
They're raising rates on poor people.
Right, okay.
So let's talk about that.
Okay,
You want to
let's
talk
talk
about it? Let's talk
Kodak.
about
Hold
that.
on. Okay, let's talk about
Wait a
Kodak.
minute, we have a question.
If we're going to talk about greed, and we're going to talk about private sector greed, there's government greed.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Sure.
You could admit there's a few people that are double dipping the pension system in New York State. So isn't greed played on both sides?
Yeah.
And at least the greed that's in the corporate or in the corporate private sector side is often earned in providing some sort of value to the public, as
What
opposed.
value did
Only the rich white
did
man
a
do it.
$3 million bonus
greed.
to take a company bankrupt play to the
You would have to
private
ask the
sector?
corporate board.
So you mean to tell me that a person that worked their entire life for their pension should not be able to collect that pension if they're an elected official
If
when
they
the
retire.
people elected them?
Right.
If they retire.
If they retire, I retired from my particular job that I worked at, that I worked hard for, earned my pension, and you're not going to tell me when to collect it. The fact of the matter is the seats, all of our seats, belong to the people. They don't belong to me.
But
And when the people,
the rules are governed by the people in those seats. They're not governed by us.
No, when the people decide, one man, one vote. When the people decide that they don't want me or whomever elected, or they want Marlowe elected or whomever elected, that's what they decide.
Yeah, but how about Mayor Duffy? How about Mayor Duffy? Mayor Duffy is a classic example
That's
of.
not a decision I make. He's
The board of directors at
elected
Kodak
official.
decided they weren't going to
But
get
so is the
that's
board
just
but so is the board that selects a CEO for a company. And if you want to be part of that voting populace, then you can buy shares in that company, and you can sit there and you can cast that vote.
It's a social contract that's broken, and I mean, I think that's what Lovely's talking about. It's a social contract. It used to be that bosses paid their workers a living wage.
No, I agree
Now,
with that.
I mean, the social contract is broken. I mean, look at Walmart in Washington, D.C. They passed a law saying, Walmart, you got to pay workers a certain amount of money. Now they don't want to build there anymore.
Right.
Would it
And you
kill
lose-
their
And that's
profits?
beauty of America.
I mean, I'm not sure I'd buy that. They've got a lot of money.
Well, you have to buy it.
Go Walmart.
But that's, I guess that's my confusion is that you've got government that's trying to tell if there's it's supply and demand. If there's 100 people that want 5 jobs, guess what? I as a business owner, which I am, will pay a lot less for those 5 jobs than if I've got 100 openings and 25 people to fill them. You damn right I'll be paying those people top notch to come work for me because it's a supply and demand of labor. So if we've got a ton of labor sitting out there, then we're not going to see wages rise. There's no reason for that.
And the market determines that, not government. Anytime the government tries to determine market forces, we lose jobs. Look at Jimmy Carter. When Reagan became president, we had 96 months of economic growth, no recession. And all he did was cut taxes and deregulate the market. That's it. And that's it.
Okay. And that little my name?
I
I
didn't
don't
get
think
my
everyone even
last
had the topic to get this.
Well,
Okay.
like, but with Kodak, I mean, Kodak is actually a perfect example. I mean, what's their stock price right now?
30 cents, 20 cents.
20 cents. Their stock price is 20 cents. Whether somebody gets a bonus or not at this point, I think whatever their business model was, like you said, so that's, these people that work for them, and again, I do believe that if a business or a government, whatever, you say you're going to pay someone a pension or whatever it is, then you should do it, right, if you can. When your stock hits 20 cents, though, don't think it's going to happen. And to be quite honest, even with the CEO that's coming in, they're giving them $3 million to turn things around or whatever, or going out. Oh yeah, the going out. Sorry.
The bonus.
Yeah, the bonus
It's not
going
even
out.
a salary.
But what is $3 million when we think about what Kodak used to be is nothing. But when people, because they're bankrupt, they're Kodak, and the amount of jobs that they used to have than what they are now is completely different. And so they used to be, again, a big employer. They had more money that they could spend. Their bad business choices or whatever it is that happened to make them go down, now they're in the predicament that they're in. Government has the same thing. Like, personally, I don't believe that government jobs should have pensions. If we're going to do it, it should be for our military men in service. I don't know why you can serve 10 years in Congress or in office and then be paid for the rest of your life off of taxpayer money when all of the money was brought in to begin with from taxpayers. That in itself, if we got rid of that, we could cut the cost of government. There are very practical things. Right, there are very practical
No,
things.
because then they'll have to be on food stamps when they retire.
Well, I mean, let me just say this.
There's very practical things that
People
we can
think
do.
that to me, public service is not just a job and you run just to sit there and do nothing.
Nobody thinks that.
I do.
I mean, the comments
I
that
scam.
I'm or the side comments is that
Whole scam.
public service don't do any work. That we sit there and we collect a paycheck and we don't do work.
Yeah,
No,
nobody said
I
that.
work very, very hard.
But nobody said that.
And
Nobody
so,
said that.
and
I did.
We can outline, you know, I can outline the work that I have done. So to
But I
say
don't
that I don't, because I'm a public official, I don't deserve, you know, to pay into a system or, you know, a retirement or anything like that.
No, it's not that, but
The
just-
seat belongs to the people.
No, nobody said that.
Hold on.
The seat belongs to the community.
Right, and I don't want to
The
pay
system
No.
that we have
I don't
is
want
one
to pay
man,
people for the
one
rest of their
vote.
life for working
The
for 10 years.
Constitution says, we the people of the United States. It is not about me, Lovely Warren,
It's about me.
or you,
You work for me,
or it's
right.
about all of us collectively. And so, if it's about all of us collectively trying to move forward as a community, then, you know what, you're going to have somebody.
Yes,
This is why I mean, since the beginning of time, it's not like,
that's right.
you know,
But-
rather you're talking about in Africa with kings and queens, or,
But-
you know,
but when
or even
America was
in
made,
Europe,
but Lovely,
you
when
always
America
had
was
a
made,
system
our
that had
statesmen-
somebody that set the
That's
rules.
right, and our statesmen had jobs. Going to Washington was not a full-time job for them. None of this. They had jobs. They went
And
to
I have a
Washington and they
full-time
left.
job, too.
But I'm not talking about you. Right, and I said, as again, nobody, first off, nobody, right, did it come out of my mouth that people that go work for office do nothing. Never came out of my mouth. I don't even think that. I love my statesmen. I help get people elected. I think that it's a very important thing. I encourage people's civic participation. We look for more people to run for office, and we want more everyday people running for office because it's important so you get these greedy SOBs out of the government, and we quit the culture of corruption that we have, and we have more people that actually care in office. So I'm there. But with that said, it does not mean that I want people to make, I don't like career politicians. I don't think that people should be in politics for the rest of their life in one office and sit there, because then what happens is they get lobbied. All these big businesses come in, they go golfing with them, they do all these things. Next thing you know, G.E.D's getting the back scratch from this guy and that guy, and we have to buy light bulbs that cost $16 because it's going to make them, and we have to buy insurance.
For them.
That's right.
That's my point.
Right.
They,
Well, that's what I'm
they
saying.
are in
Right.
office because they are elected to be there.
Right, and I help get them elected and unelected.
So it's not as if
So
they just sit there and they say, oh, well,
Who
I want
said
to be
that?
elected for life, and therefore I'm not moving out of this seat.
But nobody's
People
saying that.
elect them.
So the
Right,
board of
so-
directors elected the Kodak CEO, and he's entitled to his money as well.
And the bankruptcy court, I believe, approved that bonus. So somehow or another, he worked for it, just as you as an elected official worked for yours. Now, the problem that I have when people say things, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to, the problem that I have when people say this whole, you know, it's greed because you worked hard and you busted your butt and you became a CEO, because it's not easy to become a CEO unless you
That's
start
right.
your own company. But to get elected by a board to become a CEO does take an amount of work that anybody can do. Now, this young lady, this couple here had mentioned a lot about education, and we've talked about poverty, we've talked about politics, we've talked about our vote. A vote that when I ran for assembly last year, 90% of the people that I talked to from Maplewood all the way to Worthing Road had no clue that the state legislature even existed. And those that did had no clue that the laws that are passed on a regular basis. The answer is simple.
That's right.
You want to be a CEO, you have to go to work. I too grew up poor. I too grew up from immigrants. I also dropped out of school, had a kid when I was 15, and smoked a bunch of pot when I was little. But you know what? Now I hold a master's degree. I'm in the bidding for a political office. Why? Not because my parents sat on welfare, because not once did they ever take a dime. And to this day, my father's 84, and I'll tell you, we had to drag him to get to apply for Medicaid because he refused. But you know what? I never experienced in my whole life an unhappy day. We have discrimination in this country, but you know what? I'll tell you something, and I'll probably get kicked for this later. Discrimination is caused by the very conversations that we're having in this room.
Exactly.
It's caused by the Zimmerman case that was on television. It's caused by what the Department of Justice is doing now, the SIP line. The court made its ruling. It's done. That is why we're continuing to have the problems. We want our people to vote so that we don't have the corruption, because the only corrupt politics that we have in Congress or even in the state or even at the local levels are the ones that we continue to re-elect.
Right. We keep
but
electing
the problem
them.
is that we have people and in an exorbitant amount of numbers that have no clue what it means to vote. They'll vote Democrat because that's what they think they have to do. They'll vote Democrat because the media,
the liberal media,
on the liberal side.
Well, I just want to say I'm a Democrat,
and I love you.
And I love you too.
Well, that's really nice. I have to say that I've never heard of the bridge before, but I've gone to a number of these kinds of things about racism, about poverty, and I really think this is great because I am challenged here. I mean, I love Lovely, but I'm hearing all these other things that you don't hear generally when you go to these nicey kissy face things.
No, because we're not about that.
And you're not. And I really think that this back and forth and this heartfelt talk is critical to my growth, to understand. I mean, I have a real problem with a lot of things that happen in my party. You know, I'm actually
slavery, Jim Crow.
I consider myself a liberal Democrat, but I have a real problem with my party, and I think that a lot of what I'm hearing, I'm not sure who's Democrat, Republican here, but I think that a lot of the things that I'm hearing really touch on the problems that I think that we face, whether we are Democrats or Republicans. For instance, I think a lot of the cultural, social, and moral depravity in this country is from abortion, which is promoted by my party. So, I mean, I feel like my party also has problems in a number of ways. I'm still a Democrat, but I just need to hear a variety of conversation, and I think that this bridge thing is so much healthier than a lot of these other things that I go to.
Yeah, because we want to really help. Let me tell you, I really want her to become mayor. Okay, because she's approachable. And she knows me. The only reason why I say this is because from what I know about her, and I'm not, kissing no butt and all that.
Oh, yeah, sure, Tommy, sure, Tommy.
From reading my articles in the paper, and I know they read a little bit of them, okay, now, they know if they want real information, real concern, and answer, they might not agree with me, but I'm going to give it to you the way it is. And it's not going to be in a disrespectful manner, but we have to look at why we're discussing these problems in the first place. I work in the jail. It is terrible in there. I have 98 Father's Day cards in my desk. I've been working for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office now for 3 years as a chaplain. I have never received a request for a Father's Day card, ever. That is terrible. And every time that happens, year by year when Father's Day go by, I always think about the policies that were created to allow fathers to run off and not be fathers. And then we wonder why we don't have kids graduating from high school. We wonder why we have all this black on black crime. And then as soon as a so-called white guy kill a black guy, we want to riot.
Well, I think the drug policy has something to do with
it. Exactly. But this is the point. This is the point that I'm making. So it's not that we don't care as Republicans. It's not that we don't care. We just have a different way of going about addressing these issues, and we have a good track record to prove it. But every time we prove it, people always say, "Well, there's a divide in the community. The Republicans got this, and the city got that." Why is that?
Yeah, and that's why we need to do this. And
Exactly.
one of my sort of hopes moving forward is, gentleman back here has a question, so I want to get to...
Sorry, but I'm used to standing up. I'm a whole military person. But I was born and raised right here in Rochester. I don't know if you remember Hanover Project.
Yeah, I remember.
There were families in there with like 357 families, 7 buildings, 7 trusts, we used to call it. But we was family. when I did something wrong in building 1, I would get a whooping all the way back around.
All right now.
So it was family.
Exactly.
We got to come back as family, seriously. You know, we know that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And you know, like, because I love God. And everybody in that group loved the Lord right then, in the Hanover house. And I know you're familiar with projects. And the project, you couldn't come in the project, listen, you got checked by me and some other guys to come in the project. But you got to play, you got to see, you got to be able to run. It was sports and everything. What I'm trying to tell you and stuff is that love that we have to bring back. It's that thing where we used to get a whooping. Now nobody can hit your child. And our children are running wild. They took prayer out of school. So if you want to fix something, get back where we used to be.
But who took the prayer out of school?
Democrats.
Who took it out?
The Democrats.
All I know was somebody white took it out. See?
I think it was Lyndon Baines Johnson, wasn't it?
See, criticize, get him.
But you got to remember there. You got to remember now. I was in Vietnam. I got wounded. I'm 100% disabled vet. So I get good money coming to me. So you gonna tell me you want to take my money because I wouldn't fought for it?
No, you put that into the system. You put that money into the system. You earned that.
Okay,
we're talking about people who not put into the system.
Okay, but see, then again, there's people in jail that need to be in jail.
Exactly.
Okay, and then there's some in there that don't need to be in there.
That's right.
There's some on welfare that need to be on welfare. That's right. And then there's some that don't need it.
Right. Everybody born there.
But the thing is, the system is, it's so easier for the man to get on welfare than it is a woman. I take in some borders and help them. And a man to go out and say, yeah, I got my check already. And a woman try to get it. They deny me. She got 2 kids. And they tell her, that's your fault because you got 2 kids. You see? Our system is all messed up. So that's why I would say, I vote for y'all. Y'all change some of the system the way it is going. But remember, we got to go back a little bit.
We have to go back.
God, faith,
we have to
and
reform
family.
these. And I'm going to let you know something right now. Okay? We have to reform these policies. I'm going to run. I'm running. I am. And I'm going to do that. But right now, we're not finished.
You better watch out, Lovely, because he's a coming.
But right now, this community is not ready for it. They're not ready for this message. You know? They're not ready for it.
Wait. No, yes, we are. Like you said, we weren't ready for a black president. We're ready for you.
Prove me
Tell
wrong.
them. I tell you ready too.
Yeah.
Can I know, prove me wrong. You know, when we were talking about equal access, you know, like, or not equal access, Rachel was talking about, I'm sorry, about,
Lovely.
No, when we were talking about, income disparity and, you know, like, and as far as, like, wages and stuff like that. And I was thinking of, you know, the Forbes story, you know, like, Steve Forbes and where he got, you know, his grandfather, you know, didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, came here.
With $4 in his pocket.
Yeah, you know, and you know what he did? He went and he worked like 3 jobs for like a year and a half, okay? And he took all of this money and he, you know, put it away, and of course, he didn't see his family at all, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, he had enough money to buy a suit, 1 suit, because, you know, at the time it was. He took that money, he bought the suit, continued to work a little bit, and he went and took a weekend in New York City. That's what he bought with his money. And of course his family was all mad. They're like, what are you talking about? We're dirt poor, we have nothing, we're not eating, and you're taking this money, buying a suit, and going to New York City for a weekend. He took a weekend in, like, a fancy hotel. He went up and he found these CEOs and stuff that we all demonized, and said, you know what? Talked to a bunch of them. Get his story. It's unbelievable.
What year was that?
Oh, during the Depression.
20s.
20s.
1920. So,
yeah, it was during the
you
Depression.
think that African American or Latino would have had that same opportunity? No.
Okay, I'm talking about a story of disparity. Hold on, let me just finish. I'll answer that. I'll answer that.
Equal access to opportunity.
Yes, I will. He did. Yeah. Hold on. I'll address that. But I just want to finish what he did. So he went there, and he went to this hotel, and then went and he told the CEO. He said, "I will work for you for free for 1 month. If you don't like what you see," and this is with a family that he had to feed, If you don't like what you see, you don't have to hire me, and I'll walk away, okay? Regardless of anything, I don't care who you are. I'm talking 2013, to do something like that, not only did that take, belief in yourself, or just saying, I can't stay where I'm at, because he knew he couldn't stay where he's at. And then, of course, today, Steve Forbes, he talks about how guilty he feels. He has all this, guilt about being born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And I'm like, really? That's what I want. I want to be able to do that. I would love for my grandkids to be born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and then I have something to leave them. Okay? I would love it. It's like 7% of blacks have generational wealth. That, again, they're just heartbreaking number. But I say that, okay, and if, again, to say sometimes when we hear these stories of what people have done to overcome situations that they're in, especially in poverty, they're usually astronomical. Our greats, even in the black community, all came from abject poverty. But their parents or single parents, I'm talking single parents or two-parent home, either one, did something that said, I am not staying in this city. Lovely's mom, I'm sure, she said that your mom sent you to Catholic school. She did something that said, I am going to buck this system in some way.
But that's not reality. That's not reality.
It might not be, but she's reaching back into her community now. Hold on.
Wait a minute, no, you talk.
But she's going back into her community. That's what we do.
That's not our reality.
How is that not reality?
That is not our reality.
All right.
Because
why not?
As a black man,
okay,
I don't have that luxury. I just told you that my son was just discriminated.
Okay.
Walking in a store.
Not because he was black, though.
But I'm talking about my son.
He had a hoodie on.
He had a hoodie on.
Okay. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
They needed his face on the camera to show in case he was a thief. Doesn't matter.
He can walk with a hoodie. He can walk with his pants halfway on his behind. Doesn't matter.
But it's a free store, and he can say, I don't want you in this store. No shirt, no shoes, no service. Yes.
It doesn't work that way.
That's his store. He can protect his store.
That was a poor analogy between Steve Ford or Malcolm Ford, I think is who you're talking about.
Well, no, I'm saying Steve Forbes today, like I said his grandfather.
Okay, and versus what it is that we're going through right now.
Frederick Douglass. Let's take him.
How about Ben Carson?
Let me have the floor, please.
Let the man speak.
Have the floor.
You can.
May I have the floor? Thank you.
And then we have a question.
The issue here is that is a very poor analogy. Because of the fact, like I said, as a black man, I am already perceived a danger and a threat before I walk in a store. Okay? So therefore, I have to work double effort, double hard to prove myself, whether it be a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever the situation. Do you admit that it takes me a harder time to get through that door?
It does.
Sure. I agree with that. That's fine. So what? So do it. That's fine. I love it. I didn't say you didn't, but let's take Frederick Douglass.
Okay, hold on. We have a
Let's
question,
take
guys.
Frederick Douglass and what he did. He grew up in a time way harder than you. He was whipped.
How do you know that?
He wrote 3 autobiographies.
No.
He wrote 3 autobiographies.
Moderator is asking for the floor.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock. I want to respect everyone's time. We have a question, and I want to wrap up. Okay, go ahead.
I don't live in the city. I'm out in Pittsburgh, and I've been on the Pittsburgh School Board for the last 6 years. I just ended my term as vice president, just so you know where I am, where I'm coming from. We had a lady that came to us from the inner city under the urban-suburban program, and she almost made me cry when we asked her, why did you want to come to the Pittsburgh School District to be there? And she said it's because of your behaviors, because you will train my child and you will help my child. And I think I wrote something to Rachel about, I call it the three-legged stool in Pittsburgh we have. It's the parent, the teachers, and the students. Everybody's got to participate. But I listen to all of you guys, and I love it. I got to tell you. Lovely, I hope you win. You've got the enthusiasm and everything. Rachel, you mentioned about the kids, can't exactly remember what it was, but something with the kids weren't coming through with something. But
right, they didn't have the tools. The parents wanted to help their children, but didn't always.
Right, and you mentioned the 5 hours they didn't want to do it. Think about this as a possible fix. It's behaviors, and I deal with people at work. I have multiple people, not a corporation, but I work for the government. And I use what I call the ABC behavioral analysis. It's the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. Look at where you are now with your behaviors. Then look, what did it get to bring you there? The CEO. If you look at that, he got there. The behavior is he got $3 million as the consequence out of it. So if you want to change that, you got to change it all the way back up front. It's not an easy fix.
Exactly.
So if you can change the behaviors of the people, how can we get 5 hours of training for the kid to get the parents to sit with them? If you can, and I don't have the answer. I don't know how to make them do that or coach them into doing that, but somehow, maybe you get city school coaches that go out to help parents. Maybe that's a way to do it. You know, a parent that's making $8 an hour can't come in to see a teacher because they'll lose $8 an hour. And if they're close to poverty, you know, maybe, and I'm not saying giveaways because I know, Ayesha, I love your enthusiasm, but maybe if we gave them a $50 voucher to come in and see a teacher, they would then get a $50 voucher and talk to the teacher and go, I better do something with my child.
Right.
So you got to do something, but it all should be short term, not long term, because that's the 99 weeks of unemployment.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, somebody's going to be getting a job, but if you let them go, I mean, you gotta sit. It's motivation. So behaviors are the key, I think. I'm just offering that as.
No, I think you're right. Can I just say this? I think you're right. I think we've lowered standards.
Right.
I think we've lowered standards. And so I think it's important that we go back to the drawing board to begin to raise those standards in all communities, particularly even in my own community.
But I just said, but if we try and raise the standards, then you say, why are you raising the standards and my kid can't compete? Versus saying, in the Pittsburgh schools, right, it doesn't matter where you come from, the standard is the same.
Because your standards are harsh.
Versus you come to this, okay, but your parent, why is the parent?
Because they're not self-focused.
Because you are in a...
How is that true? I've had plenty of people self-focused.
Children that are in... That's not true. Let me just tell you this. If you look at the statistics, children, whether they were born in poverty or born out in Pittsburgh, when they go to a high-quality pre-K program and they start school in kindergarten, right? They enter into school, whether they're black, white, Latino, poor, or rich. They enter into the school on the same playing field at the same level as their suburban counterparts. Something happens to inner city children between kindergarten and 4th grade that makes them disinterested in school.
That's right.
Now, they have the same poverty level, they're coming from the same neighborhood, everything is the same as far as their social background. But no one rises to low expectations.
That's right.
The reason why that parent wanted her child out there is because she knows what you will expect from her child. Because the standards are here for her. And for some children, I just said for some children that enter into the city school district, and I think that, you know, that sometimes teachers' hands are tied when it comes down, because I believe that we have great teachers in the system. But for some children, between kindergarten and 4th grade, something happens to them psychologically, and they lose expectations for them. And we have to deal with that. We cannot, if they can perform from pre-K to kindergarten, what happened? Everything stays the same. It's not poverty. It's not neighborhood. It's not any of that stuff. It is a systematic problem that we don't want to talk about and we don't want to deal with. Because I can guarantee you that if the result of our school system, where 50% of our children graduated from high school, were out in Pittsburgh, where you pay your taxes and, you know, where you say, you know, I'm going to raise my taxes to pay for my school district, you would have a heart attack. Everybody would be voted out.
I got to disagree with Lovely on that. All things are not equal. Studies show that when kids enter kindergarten in the Rochester City School District, they have thousands and thousands of fewer words than the kids in Pittsburgh.
High quality pre-K program.
Studies also show.
No, remember I said. Well, let me quote the statistic correctly. Children that are in high quality pre-K programs, pre-K 3, 4, and 5 programs, they enter into school at the same level. I'm not talking about children that are not.
But here's another reason why they're not the same. studies have also shown, the New York Times has written so much about this, is that the parent in Pittsburgh spends a lot of money on their kid on enrichment activities.
But it's also a two-parent home, though.
Right, and there may be two
parents are helping their children.
There is money is a factor. They spend a ton of money on enrichment activities for their children. I just wanted to say something to Ayesha, and I'm done. I did work for free. I did work for free. I worked for WBNY-TV my last semester of college. I worked for them for free with the understanding, you give me a job the day I graduate. They did. Guess what I was paid? $7 an hour. And, no, $7 an hour. I had a Cornell degree, and I was paid $7 an hour for my first reporting job. Do you know how I survived? I survived from the bank of mom and dad. That's right. And Peterson mentioned the liberal media. That has not been my experience, because who can afford to become a reporter if that's the entry system? And that's why the media might not be as diverse as it should be, because that's the entry system. I relied on my parents for my first, 5 years after college, because that's the kind of money I was making. And I've never worked in a newsroom where I felt it was, and of course I've only worked in local news, but if anything, I was always the one pushing to cover certain issues and to put a certain perspective. And in fact, one job, and I have to be careful what I say here, I had a letter of reprimand in my file because I covered too many stories in the city. So that certainly has not been my experience.
Okay. Let me just say something. One thing about he's talking about the children having.
But back in the day, like you said,
I ride by people, parents in the front seat of the car, smoking weed while their children are in the back seat. All that went down one street and got out of the car, and also I almost got contact because the kids was all out here. That's what's wrong with us. The drugs is what's wrong with our children.
Well, and that was my mom.
I grew up in North Carolina.
Exactly how I grew up, right there.
Okay, this is a lot of fun.
No, it was great.
But I mean, I guess I'll just kind of close with this, and I know Kristen wants to say something quickly too. I just want to say that, when we talk about changing the systems and reforming the systems and going back to the drawing board and my thing, you won't get into 5 minutes of a conversation with me without hearing me talk about we need to address root causes before we address the symptoms. And that's going to be something that you're going to hear from me anytime you talk to me. But I think that's something that we as elected leaders, as city leaders, these are all community leaders in one way or another. Hopefully soon to be elected. My desire would be that we push for, and as we're going to continue these forums, the Bridge does these forums. Peterson, can I say that? Can I say this now? Okay. So Peterson as the chair, and I'm the vice chair of the Latino National Republican Coalition of Monroe County, New York State. So we're going to be doing some similar forums that'll be probably more politically and socially focused, and the Bridge will continue to do these forums as well. So, I mean, I want us to encourage to be supporting these things, because I hope that everyone felt included and heard, and no one felt,
I didn't get my stuff in, though.
I know. But, so I guess, and we can't just talk about it. These forums are great, but the leadership in our communities has to back it up. So when political leadership is going to the drawing board and saying, hey, we need to look at this, and this is an issue, it's, my humble suggestion is that we're doing it with people that disagree with us as well. This is the kind of,
and I enjoy, my board of directors don't agree with me, but that's how we function.
The Bridge is, we have a board of, we used to have an atheist on our board. I'll admit, I'm a conservative Republican, and I think I'm the only one on our board that is. But I do that intentionally. We do that intentionally because we know that it's not going to be productive if we all think the same thing and are sitting around musing about the same thing. It's only going to be productive if we're working with other. Peterson, go ahead, quick.
I appreciate it very, very quick.
Sure.
First of all, thank you all for coming in. I really appreciate it. I know all of you have a lot of busy schedules. And Rachel, I have to admit, I've watched you for very many years. Rachel's definitely not one of the one-sided reporters out there. So what I wanted to say was that it really is all about education. But we talked about, kids coming in at playing fields. Horizon's got some great studies that shows that the children do come in at the same playing field. And they do well for a few years, but then they end up regressing because their social environment is completely different. And they don't have the enrichments that many of us other people have the ability to do. But, in my opinion, where I think that we're losing a lot of our children where the mishap is happening is that we're missing the concept of servant leadership in our schools. We have too many teachers, too many administrators that are worried about politics, that are worried about, oh my God,
standardized
I can't tell Johnny that he can't do that or I'm going to get sued. I'm sorry, Marlowe, but you know what? Your son should have taken his hat off. That's simple. It would have alleviated the whole thing. You can't walk into a bank with it. My kids will not walk out of the house without a tank top. It's about appearance. You know what's going to happen if you walk somewhere and you're 6 feet tall. And you know what? Being black, I'm Latino. It happens to me. I walked into work one day with my hoodie on. Same thing. The guy held the door shut. I had to pull it open. And I've been there for 3 years. It happens. But how do we mitigate that? How do we teach others? Well, we teach our children how to dress. We teach our children how to do the things. If our teachers aren't servant leaders, then what are our kids doing? If our politicians aren't servant leaders, then how are we going to come together as a group and come up with solutions? Because the politicians don't have the solutions. That's been proven over and over and over again. But you know what, though? That person who's living over in Jefferson or Clinton Avenue has the solution because they live with it every day.
That's right. It's dirty again.
The last thing I'll say, and I promise this will be the last thing, is let's forget Republicans. Let's forget Democrats. Right. Let's vote for individuals like Lovely, like Marlowe, who understand the community. Let's vote for individuals.
Oh, you did? I mean, you can clap, but I rarely would vote for a Democrat, but I'll vote for these two.
Let's vote for individuals who go into the community and talk to the doors.
No!
It's been 2 years they've seen a politician knock at their door over on Clinton or over on the Lyota side. Why is that? Last year, politicians were at every neighborhood association picnic that I went to. I went to every single one this year. Not one was there.
That's right, because it's your off season.
That's right.
And the education is the problem. Pittsford has 2 parents, and for the most part.
Right.
Both of them are working 40 hours plus. So it's almost like we do have an absent child.
Well, I just want to say, government can't do this.
Absolutely.
We got to, you know, it has to be a partnership. You know, everybody has a role to play. And so I cannot sit here and say that I have all the solutions and government is going to fix everybody's problem. This is, everybody has to pull together to take care of the issues that are plaguing our community and also to move us forward. So, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to come and to talk, and, you know, I found it very enlightening and, you know, exciting. You know, I like to do this stuff too. So, but really, you know, as an elected official, I just want to say we can't do it by ourselves. We need the community's help.
Thank you all very much. This is great, and I hope